A powerful billionaire shocks the world by choosing a poor orphan over his own daughter, unaware that his decision will awaken a dark force that threatens to destroy everything he loves. In a single moment, he chose a stranger, and destroyed his own blood. The grand ballroom shimmered under golden chandeliers, filled with the most powerful names in the city. Cameras flashed endlessly, capturing every smile, every handshake, every whispered deal. At the center of it all stood the billionaire, calm, confident, and admired by everyone around him. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. A moment to honor family, legacy, and the future. Beside him stood his daughter, elegant, poised, dressed in a gown that reflected both her status and her quiet hope. She believed this night was about her, about being acknowledged finally, as the rightful heir to everything her father had built. But then, everything changed. The billionaire raised his hand, signaling for silence. The room obeyed instantly. Every eye turned toward him, waiting. "I have made a decision," he said, his voice firm, echoing through the hall. A soft smile appeared on the daughter's face. This was it. But then slowly he stepped aside, revealing a small figure standing behind him. A young girl. Quiet. Fragile. Dressed in simple worn clothes that did not belong in a place like this. Murmurs spread across the room. "From this day forward," he continued, "this girl will be my chosen daughter." The silence that followed felt heavy, almost unnatural. The real daughter blinked, confused at first. Then the meaning of his words hit her like a storm. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some exchanged shocked glances, others simply stared, unable to believe what they were witnessing. "Father," she stepped forward, her composure breaking. "What are you saying?" But he didn't look at her. Not even once. Instead, his attention remained fixed on the orphan girl, who stood completely still. Too still. Was she nervous? Or was it something else? The daughter's hands clenched at her sides. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest. "This has to be a mistake. He wouldn't do this to me." But deep down, she knew it wasn't. "I have made my choice," he said coldly. And just like that, her world collapsed. The whispers in the crowd grew louder now, filled with judgment, confusion, even curiosity. Cameras turned toward her, capturing every second of her humiliation. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Her gaze slowly shifted to the orphan. The girl's face remained expressionless, almost empty. But for a brief second, something flickered in her eyes. Something that didn't feel right. Something that didn't feel human. A chill ran down the daughter's spine. Why did it feel like this wasn't just a cruel decision, but the beginning of something far worse? The applause began, forced, uncertain, but growing louder as people followed the billionaire's lead. And in that moment, surrounded by noise and light, one truth became painfully clear. She had lost everything. Moral: a single decision made without love can break more than just a heart, it can invite darkness into your life. A broken heart doesn't stay broken. Sometimes it turns into something dangerous. The mansion felt different that night. It was the same grand place, marble floors, tall windows, soft glowing lights, but for her, it no longer felt like home. Every corner now echoed with the memory of that moment, the moment her father chose someone else. She walked slowly through the long hallway, her heels no longer making confident sounds, but soft, empty echoes. The servants avoided her gaze. No one spoke. It was as if she had already been erased. Inside her room, she closed the door gently, and the silence finally broke her. Tears rolled down her face, one after another, as she sank onto the floor. Why did he do this? Her chest tightened with pain she couldn't understand. This wasn't just rejection. It felt like betrayal. Like everything she had believed in, every memory, every moment of love, had suddenly lost its meaning. Was I never enough for him? She covered her mouth, trying to stop the sound of her own sobs. But deep inside, something began to change. The pain didn't disappear. It hardened. Days passed, but nothing got better. She stopped attending dinners. Stopped speaking unless necessary. Her laughter faded into silence, replaced by a cold distance that even she didn't recognize. And then, her attention turned to the girl. The orphan. There was something about her that didn't make sense. She never asked for anything. never complained, never even tried to fit in. She simply existed, quietly, almost like a shadow moving through the house. Too quiet. One evening, as the daughter stood at the top of the staircase, she saw her. The orphan girl was standing alone in the living room, staring at nothing. No movement. No sound. Just standing there. For a moment, it felt like time itself had stopped. The daughter frowned slightly, watching carefully. Then suddenly, the girl tilted her head. Slowly. As if she knew she was being watched. Their eyes met. A strange, unsettling feeling crept into the daughter's heart. There was no fear in the girl's expression.
No confusión.
Just emptiness. And something else. Something dark, hidden behind that silence. The daughter quickly looked away, her breath uneven. What kind of child behaves like that? That night, she couldn't sleep. Her thoughts kept returning to that moment, that stare. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't normal. None of it was. Her father's sudden decision. The girl's strange presence. The silence that surrounded her. It all felt wrong. Slowly, the sadness inside her began to shift. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was anger. Cold. Quiet. Growing stronger with every passing moment. She stood in front of her mirror, staring at her own reflection, no longer the soft, hopeful girl she once was. Something had changed. "I won't just sit and watch," she whispered softly. Her voice was calm, but firm. Because deep down, she knew one thing now. This wasn't just about losing her father. This was about uncovering the truth. And whatever that truth was, it was waiting in the shadows of her own home. Moral: when pain is left unanswered, it can transform into a force that seeks the truth, no matter how dark it may be. She wasn't just different. Something about her wasn't human. The mansion had always been a place of order and control. Every step, every voice, every movement followed a quiet rhythm. But now, that rhythm was broken. It started with whispers. Soft. Barely audible. Late at night, when the halls were empty and the lights dimmed, the servants began hearing it. A faint voice, echoing through the corridors. At first, they thought it was just the wind, or imagination. Until one of them followed the sound. And found her. The orphan girl stood near the end of the hallway, her back facing him. Her lips were moving, slowly, repeatedly, as if she was speaking to someone. But there was no one there. "Miss?" the servant called hesitantly. The whispering stopped. Silence filled the air. Then, without turning her body, the girl's head tilted slightly, just enough to reveal part of her face. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. Her voice didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a fact. The servant stepped back, a chill running down his spine. From that night on, no one walked alone after dark. But the strange moments didn't stop. They became more frequent. More unsettling. She would appear in rooms no one had seen her enter. Standing quietly in corners, watching. Always watching. Sometimes in the garden at dawn, barefoot on the cold ground, staring at the sky as if she was waiting for something. And the most disturbing part? She knew things. One morning, a maid dropped a tray in the kitchen, her hands shaking after receiving a phone call about her sick mother. Before anyone could ask, the girl spoke. "She'll be fine by evening," she said calmly. The maid froze. How do you know?" The girl didn't answer. She simply walked away. By evening, the call came. Her mother had recovered. A coincidence? Or something else? The tension in the house grew heavier with each passing day. The staff whispered among themselves, fear creeping into their voices. But when they tried to speak to the billionaire, he dismissed it all. "Enough of these stories," he said sharply. "She is just a child." A child? The daughter stood silently nearby, listening. Her eyes followed the girl across the room as she walked past them, quiet, distant, untouched by everything around her. "No, she's not just a child." That feeling returned again. That same cold, unsettling presence. The daughter began noticing things others didn't. Like how the girl never seemed surprised. Never reacted. Never showed real emotion. Or how sometimes, when no one was looking, she would smile. Not a happy smile. Something else. Something that didn't belong on a child's face. One evening, As the sun faded and shadows stretched across the walls, the daughter turned a corner. And stopped. The girl was standing right in front of her. Too close. Too sudden. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then the girl leaned in slightly, her eyes locked onto hers. "You're starting to see it, aren't you?" she whispered. The daughter's breath caught in her throat. What was she talking about? Before she could respond, the girl stepped back, and walked away as if nothing had happened, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than ever, and a question that refused to leave her mind. What exactly had entered their home? Moral: sometimes the things we refuse to see are the very things that hold the darkest truths. The truth they uncovered should have stayed buried forever. The rain fell softly against the tall windows, tracing quiet lines down the glass as the night deepened. Inside her room, the daughter sat alone, surrounded by silence, and questions that refused to rest. She couldn't ignore it anymore. The strange behavior. The whispers. The way the girl seemed to know things no one told her. This wasn't normal. And if no one else was willing to find the truth, she would. That night, she opened her laptop, her fingers trembling slightly as she began searching. At first, there was nothing. No records. No history. No identity that made sense. It was as if the girl had appeared out of nowhere. But then, she found something. A small article. Old. Almost forgotten. A fire. An orphanage, burned down years ago under mysterious circumstances. Several children had gone missing. Some were never found. Her heart began to race. She clicked deeper, following every lead, every broken link, every hidden trace. Names didn't match. Dates were inconsistent. Records had been erased or altered. Why would someone erase a child's past? This isn't just a coincidence. Something is being hidden. The next day, she visited the archives herself. Quietly. Without telling anyone. The air inside was heavy with dust and time. Old files stacked high, untouched for years. After hours of searching, she found it. A folder. Thin, but enough. Inside were reports. Statements. Fragments of something no one wanted to remember. Witnesses had spoken of strange things happening before the fire. Children waking up screaming at night. Objects moving on their own. And one line, repeated again and again. A girl who never cried. The daughter's hands tightened around the paper. A girl who never cried. Her mind immediately went to the orphan. Could it really be her? Another report mentioned something even more disturbing. A caretaker claimed the girl would often speak to someone unseen, and that strange accidents always followed shortly after. But the most terrifying part? No body was ever found. The girl had simply disappeared. The daughter stepped back, her breath unsteady. Was it possible that the same girl had returned? She left the archives quickly, her thoughts racing, her heart filled with a fear she couldn't explain. That evening, she watched the orphan from a distance again. The girl sat quietly in the garden, her eyes fixed on nothing. Unmoving. Unfeeling. Just like the reports described. The pieces began to connect. The silence. The whispers. The knowing. This was no ordinary child. This was something else. Something dark. Something that had followed her, or maybe had been waiting all along. The daughter's chest tightened as the truth settled in. Her father hadn't just made a mistake. He had brought something dangerous into their lives. And now, it was already too close. Too deep inside their home. Too powerful to ignore. The girl slowly turned her head again, as if sensing her gaze. And once more, that faint, unnatural smile appeared. A smile that held secrets no one should ever know. Moral: some pasts are not meant to be uncovered, because once revealed, they can change everything forever. By the time he realized his mistake, the darkness had already entered. The mansion no longer felt like a place of power. It felt like a place being watched. The first sign came with the lights. One evening, as the staff prepared dinner, the chandeliers flickered suddenly. Once, twice, then the entire hall fell into darkness. A soft gasp echoed through the room. Seconds later, the lights returned. Everything looked the same. But nothing felt the same. The servants exchanged uneasy glances. No one spoke, but everyone felt it, that invisible shift, like something had quietly stepped inside. That night, the wind howled louder than usual, pressing against the windows as if trying to force its way in. Doors creaked open on their own. Curtains moved, even when the air was still. And then, the shadows. They didn't stay where they should. A maid froze in the hallway as she watched one stretch unnaturally across the wall, twisting, moving, even though nothing stood in its path. She dropped the tray in her hands, the sound echoing sharply. "Did you see that?" she whispered. But no one answered. Because no one wanted to. The fear was growing. Slowly. Silently. Unstoppable. The daughter stood in the center of her room, her heart racing as she listened to the faint sounds around her, footsteps where there should be none, soft whispers brushing past her ears. It's getting stronger, whatever it is. She knew now. This wasn't imagination. This was real. Downstairs, the billionaire finally began to notice. A glass shattered in his hand without warning. The air felt colder. Heavy. Suffocating. He looked around, confused for the first time. "What is happening in this house?" he demanded. But his voice lacked the confidence it once carried. Because deep down, he already knew something was wrong. And yet, he still refused to see the truth. Later that night, he walked through the dark hallway alone. The silence felt unnatural. Then suddenly, a voice. Soft. "Close. Why did you choose me?" He froze. His breath caught as he slowly turned around. No one was there. Or so it seemed. From the corner of his eye, he saw movement. The orphan girl stood at the far end of the corridor, her figure barely visible in the dim light. "You gave me a place," she said softly. Her voice echoed strangely, as if it didn't belong to just her. The billionaire frowned, trying to stay calm. "You shouldn't be awake at this hour." But she didn't respond. Instead, she smiled. That same unnatural smile. And suddenly, the lights went out again. Complete darkness. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No movement. Then, a whisper. Right behind him. "You can't send me away now." He spun around in fear, but the hallway was empty when the lights returned. The girl was gone. As if she had never been there. The billionaire stood frozen, his hands trembling slightly. For the first time, doubt entered his mind. What if this wasn't just a child? What if he had made a terrible mistake? Upstairs, the daughter watched everything unfold from the shadows. Her expression was no longer filled with pain. It was something else now. Awareness. Because she knew the truth had already begun to reveal itself. And whatever had entered their home wasn't leaving. The girl he rejected was the only one who could save him. The night felt heavier than ever. The air inside the mansion had turned cold, almost lifeless, as if every wall was holding its breath. The daughter stood at the end of the hallway, her hands slightly trembling, but her eyes steady. She couldn't run anymore. Not from the truth. Not from the fear. Tonight, she would face it. Slowly, she walked toward the garden doors. The same place where she had seen the girl sitting in silence so many times. The same place where everything had begun to feel wrong. As she stepped outside, the wind brushed against her face, carrying a strange stillness with it. And there she was. The orphan girl sat on the ground, unmoving, her back turned, as if she had been waiting. "I know what you are," the daughter said, her voice quiet but firm. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the girl stood up. Without turning around. "You took your time," she replied softly. The daughter's heart pounded, but she didn't step back. What kind of child speaks like that? This is it. I can't be afraid anymore. "Who are you?" she demanded. The girl tilted her head slightly, and then turned. Her face looked the same. But her eyes. They weren't empty anymore. They were darker. Deeper. Something moved inside them. Something alive, something wrong. "I was alone," the girl said calmly. "Until he chose me." Her voice echoed faintly, as if layered with another presence beneath it. "You shouldn't be here," the daughter said, taking a step forward despite the fear rising in her chest. A small smile appeared on the girl's lips. "You invited me," she whispered. The wind suddenly grew stronger. The trees around them began to sway, their shadows stretching unnaturally across the ground. The daughter's breath grew uneven. "No, my father did," she said. The girl shook her head slowly. "No," she replied. "You all did, with your silence, your pride, your choices." The ground beneath them seemed to grow colder. Then suddenly, the girl's expression changed. Her smile widened, unnaturally. Her eyes darkened further, as if swallowing the light around them. For a brief second, her reflection in the glass door behind her didn't match her movements. The daughter froze. Fear surged through her like a storm. But she didn't run. Not this time. "You're not taking this family," she said, her voice shaking but determined. The girl stepped closer. Too close. "You still care about them?" she asked softly. A pause. A deep, painful pause. "Yes," the daughter whispered. "Even after everything, yes." The girl's eyes flickered for a moment. Then her voice dropped, colder than before. "Then you'll suffer the most." The wind howled suddenly, and the lights inside the mansion flickered wildly. For a moment, everything felt like it would collapse. But the daughter stood her ground. Because now she understood. This wasn't just fear. This was a fight. And she was the only one willing to face it. No matter what it cost her. The girl slowly stepped back into the darkness, her figure fading into the shadows once again. But her presence remained. Stronger than ever. Watching. Waiting. In the end, the choice he made came back to claim everything. The storm broke without warning. Thunder roared across the sky, shaking the mansion to its core as darkness swallowed every corner. The lights flickered wildly, then died. Inside, the air turned heavy, almost suffocating. The daughter stood in the center of the hall, her heart steady now, not because the fear was gone, but because she had accepted it. This was the end. And she would not run. A cold wind rushed through the corridors, slamming doors open one by one. Shadows twisted along the walls, growing longer, darker, alive. Then, she appeared. The orphan girl stood at the top of the staircase. But this time, she was not the same. Her small frame seemed surrounded by something invisible yet powerful. Her eyes were no longer just dark, they were endless, like a void pulling everything into it. "You should have stayed silent," the voice echoed, not just from her, but from everywhere. The daughter stepped forward. "No," she said firmly. "This ends tonight." A low, unnatural laugh filled the space. "Ends?" the entity whispered. "This is only the beginning." The air around them trembled. Objects began to shake, then rise slowly into the air. Glass shattered. The walls cracked with a deep, echoing sound. Still, she did not step back. "Even if I lose everything, I won't let this take him too." From behind, a voice broke through the chaos. "Stop." The billionaire. He stood there, shaken, his face pale, his eyes finally open to the truth he had refused to see. This isn't possible," he whispered. The daughter didn't turn. "Now you see it," she said softly. The orphan's gaze shifted toward him, her smile widening. "You chose me," she said. His body trembled. I didn't know." But the truth was already too late. "Your choice gave me a home," the entity replied. "And now, I will take everything in return." The darkness surged forward like a storm. The daughter ran toward it. Not away. Toward it. She reached the girl, grabbing her hands despite the burning cold that shot through her body. "You're not alone," she cried out. For a brief moment, the chaos paused. The girl's expression flickered. A crack, in the darkness. "You don't have to do this," the daughter whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "Whatever you are, whatever happened to you, it doesn't have to end like this." The storm roared louder, as if fighting back. The billionaire watched, frozen, tears filling his eyes. What had he done? He had broken the one person who still stood to protect him. The daughter held on tighter. "I forgive you," she said softly, not to the girl, but to her father. The words hung in the air like light breaking through darkness. And in that moment, something changed. The girl screamed, a sound filled with pain, anger, and something human. The darkness began to tear apart, pulling away from her like shadows losing their hold. Light returned slowly. The storm began to fade. And then, silence. The girl collapsed. Still. The daughter fell to her knees beside her, breath shaking, eyes filled with tears. Behind her, the billionaire stepped forward, broken. "I was wrong," he whispered. But this time, there was no pride left in his voice. Only regret. Deep, unbearable regret. The daughter closed her eyes for a moment, exhausted, but alive. Because in the end, love had faced darkness and refused to disappear. Moral: choices made without love bring destruction, but forgiveness has the power to break even the deepest darkness.